Hello, this is Chris Duncan at Find Your Focus Photographic Education, and today we're in Lightroom, and a question was posed to me: do you need to enhance a black and white image different than a color image as far as what you might do to it to bring out different things? And my typical response is yes. Not always, but most of the time, yes. First of all, you need to realize that how colors are going to be rendered into a monochromatic or grayscale mode. For example, red and green look like 18% gray. And so a lot of times with black and white, you don't have color to introduce interest or impact in an image. You only have contrast and tonal values. So I have this image right here. It's obviously color. And you can see with her, there's a lot of different impact or maybe contrast values because of the color in the image, not necessarily the tonal quality or the light quality. Well, I think the lighting is nice. The red of her shirt really adds contrast to her skin, and the color of her lips add contrast on her face, and so forth. So if I was going to enhance this to black and white, I would be treating it different, because this is not one I would want to bring up the reds or saturate the reds or anything like that. So the first thing I recommend is you can right-click and go to Create Virtual Copy. And so a virtual copy is created. And you can see it down here. It's got the little page turn. That tells you that that's a virtual copy. That's not taking up any more information or storage space. It's just saving the XML data. Okay, so now I'm going to hit V for my quick black and white conversion. You can notice now that I don't have any really nice contrast differences on this because that red rendered the same tonal value as her face because it's 18% gray, and that's about where her skin was. So I'm going to go to my black and white menu, and I'm going to use these sliders. Now you don't have this option in color. Of course you have your hue and saturation and luminance colors, but I'm going to bring that red down. Keep in mind when I do this, it's going to start adjusting all the red values in that, which end up being most skin tones. So I can't take that too far. Can maybe counter a little bit of that with oranges, or maybe bring the oranges down. I'm going to bring the oranges up just a bit to kind of counter that. Oranges are in skin tones too, as well as yellows. I typically like to bring my blues down in this, at least on portraits. Okay, so now I'm starting to see, now I've created that contrast. If I go back in my history, I will make a snapshot of when we converted it to black and white and call this BW convert. And then I'm going to go to my history to my last state, and I can create another snapshot if I wanted to. Snapshots just are, let's see, after color adjust. Spell it right would help. So snapshots are just history states that you can lock in, so you can always go back. Okay. Now another option in Lightroom is you can click this little button here, and you can drop on a tone and bring that up or down, and it'll adjust those color tones converse as you move that slider. Okay, another thing I might do different is now that I'm in my basic panel, I can go to color, but I've really haven't changed much because what I changed was in the black and white one. Now I'm going to start changing the basic panel. So for my black and white, it all comes down to contrast. So I may bring my contrast up. But if I want to bring my contrast up, I've mentioned this before, you want to bring your clarity down. Now I'm creating a nice soft contrast on her face. Now the interest is back to her face again, like it was in the first one. And I have more contrast with that dress. Okay, I might adjust my whites and my blacks a little bit on how I like this image to be seen. Final thing, and I think this is overlooked in a lot of black and white conversions, is go back to your white balance. If it's cool, if you move this to a cool tone, look how it changes the effect on her face. So I'm going to warm this up a little bit. It's basically going to be brightening her face. Because of what I did in the color adjustments, now the black and white's rendering, if I go to color, now she's more orange. So it's going to render her face differently in those orange values because it's only going off the color information there. And I can change the tint too. Take that a little more magenta. So now it tones that down. So now I can do another snapshot and say final BW. And I can easily go like this was right when we converted it just by hitting the V key. This was after we made some color adjustments, and this is my final. Now to finish this off, I may do my vignette I've done with the radial filter before, where I just, because I can't do a vignette because it'll center it. I don't want to cover up her top of her face. So I can maybe do that. And the outside of that ring is what's been adjusted. Then I can bring the exposure on the outside and still darken that red a little bit there. And now I've created a black and white conversion that brings the focus back to her face versus starting on the color and just hitting the black and white key. Major differences. So it's very important that you understand how your colors are going to be rendered in black and white. So reds are a big thing. They look neutral gray. Greens turn to neutral gray. I'll do this really fast. If I hit V on this image, all that green tones are now going to look medium gray. And it's just kind of makes the image a little more dull. So very important. So I do treat black and white images differently. Typically, black and whites, I think, strip, well, they add a little more emotion to the image versus, you know, something like this or like this. It just puts a little more story in it. Anyway, once again, this is, let's bring that up. So you can see that image again. We'll slide over where we started. So I did, and it's just a virtual copy. So now I can select both of these, and I can go to export, and I can export them, and it's going to export both. Then it will render them both as files. But as long as it's a virtual copy, it's just using the information from one to create a duplicate. Once again, this is Cris Duncan at Find Your Focus Photographic Education. I'm a master on the Arcanum, and I appreciate you watching today. Happy creating. Hello, this is Cris Duncan with Find Your Focus Photographic Education. I'm also a master on the Arcanum, and I wanted to kind of follow up on a black and white video we made talking about how to know, or basically when you're converting to black and white, should they be processed differently. And one of the key things I said is knowing how certain colors are going to be rendered black and white. So here I've got this beautiful model on this deep gray background, and if I just hit V to make this a normal black and white, the yellow is going to look really bright because it's a brighter tone. Well, we understand now that after that previous video that I can take my yellow slider and bring it down, but it really doesn't render it well. It really starts looking kind of bleh. So if I try to bring orange or red, then I get her skin tones really jacked up. So that is not a good option in my opinion. So if yellow is going to be bright, why don't I make the background yellow? So I put a gel on my light and I lit the background yellow to try to get it as close to her dress color as I could. Here's another version that's a little bit closer. But I've already done this just to save time on the video. So I've created a virtual copy, and then I've made it black and white. Well, now all the yellows in her dress and the background are the same tonal values. So by adjusting those sliders, I can change this image, and I don't have to worry about her skin getting gross or that dress not looking right. So now the contrast is in her hair and in the tonality in her eyes. So I'm still bringing the viewer to her. Before, if I did this one as black and white, I'm bringing the viewer to her dress. And that's not what we want to do, right? So here I have the option to create the image. So I do have to process it differently. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to change a few of these sliders here. Let me bring the highlight down just a little bit. And if I start adjusting my white balance, now if I take it warmer, it's going to get really high key. So I'll bring it down a little bit cooler to bring some contrast to her skin. So just another follow-up on really understanding the color tones and how they're going to render black and white. And so this was a simple option that I knew it'd render it, so I had to light it. So I chose to light it differently, and I think it gives me a different color image look. It obviously gives me a different black and white image look. So anyway, once again, this is Cris Duncan with that quick little follow-up at Find Your Focus Photographic Education. You can find us at findyourfocus.org. Thanks for watching and happy creating.